Hello.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and it is 3, 2, 1. And now on Chatterbox UK, we're just lucky enough to welcome Dave Berry. Dave, welcome. How are you?
Hello, Dave.
Well, I'm very well, thank you. Yes, I've had a very quiet year, like most people,
Sure.
as people have read in the newspapers. Most musicians have had a very quiet year. It's been very, very frustrating because I've spent over 45 years on the road, and it's very hard to readjust. And of course, my wife is looking at me thinking, he's here again another day. I want to look at him.
Well, by the looks of it, you've been together quite some time, so she must be used to looking at you. Well, maybe not if you've been on the road 45 odd years. Anyway, have you spent, we'll start at the beginning in a minute, but have you spent lockdown? Have you just been practicing daily, jamming with yourself, or writing some stuff?
Well, yeah, because I'm not a playing musician, I don't sort of sit and play guitar or
Sure.
instruments at all. So I've been very limited, and what I've tended to be doing is I've always been interested, because I live in Derbyshire, which is a very beautiful county,
Yes,
as
yes.
anybody will know. I've spent a lot of time, I go cycling and walking. So that's been generally what I've been doing. But I've just missed the hotels. Fortunately, in my career, I've always enjoyed the things that many people get fed up with. That's traveling, hotels, sitting around backstage. As Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones said, when someone asked him what's it like to be, with the Rolling Stones for sort of 50 years, he said, well, I've been on stage for 5 years and I've been sat around waiting for 45.
Well, yeah,
Just waiting to go on stage, which I thought was a good line. But I've missed all that. The camaraderie of backstage, taking the mickey out of each other, the other musicians, we've all known each other a long time. So just the general hubbub of the music industry I've missed.
Sure. It looks like you've got quite an active website, and we'll give that out at the ends and make it so people can come and find you. So you're active online anyway. Now let's start at the beginning. Born in the 1940s, and well, take us up to that point in 1963 when you sort of became a proper musician, we'll say. How did you get your contract? What happened? Did your family play? Just give us the picture up to that point, please, Dave.
Well, the picture from the 50s when I was at school was that my dad, fortunately, had been sort of a jazz musician. He played in the dance bands of the era, only on a semi-professional level, and he was a drummer. So I'd got the influence of listening to sort of, Count Basie, Benny Goodman orchestras. And my dad used to take me to the concerts at Sheffield City Hall to see the Ted Heath Band and Ken McIntosh Band. And so I grew up listening to music, and I didn't at the time think it was, when you're growing up, your home environment is what you know. You don't think there's any other environment. And so it was only in later years I realised it was very special that I grew up with music. And then, of course, when rock and roll started, I was still at school, that attracted me straight away. So I started out just playing drums and singing Everly Brothers songs, singing in harmony.
Carry on.
That took me to sort of like 1960-ish, and then we formed a little group together in the village that I lived in, and like many young people, no different from the Stones or the Beatles or the Hollies and Troggs, and we just started playing local venues. Fortunately, in my case, I avoided, working men's clubs, which is they were the general thing that most people referred to, but we made a positive decision in the early days that we would not play working men's clubs. In fact, we used to promote our own little venues. These sort of upstairs rooms in pubs and things, function rooms in hotels.
Sure.
So we had about 4 residencies, really, that we ran ourselves. So we were very forward-thinking, really. We didn't realise at the time that we were forward-thinking, but looking back, we realised that we were doing the right thing, because we could play our own music and play the music that the kids wanted, not to be playing in the club where you had to be playing the current chart songs, you know.
Sure. Okay.
So that's how we started out. Yes.
Perfect. And how long after you starting out was it before you got yourself a record contract? Now, did they see you and say sign here, or did you just send tapes, reel-to-reel tapes out, or whatever it was in the day?
Well, because we were seasoned musicians and playing 4 or 5 nights each week for over 3 years. And then we got to about 1963.
Yeah.
I was after the Beatles. I mean, many people think I was before the Beatles, but we came with the wave of musicians after the Beatles, and we built up a very, very good following at the rock venues in Manchester, the Oasis clubs and Twisted Wheel. Doncaster was a big area for ourselves, at the ballrooms and clubs there, rock clubs there.
Wow.
So we built up a tremendous following around our area of sort of Derbyshire and Yorkshire. And of course, when the record companies were searching for new talent around the country after the Beatles had broken through, they were contacting agencies around the country who was making waves in their particular areas.
Sure.
And they picked up on ourselves, and we were, of all places, playing in Doncaster with, I think, the Baron Knights and Freddie and the Dreamers and Mickey Most.
Oh, yes.
And Mike Smith came to see us play.
Oh,
in
wonderful.
Doncaster, and pretty much signed us up straight away, because we were doing a lot of sort of R&B, you know, Chuck Berry.
Sure.
Billy Boy Arnold, John Lee Hooker, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, you couldn't go far wrong with Mickey Most, could you, really? Coming to listen to you.
That was great, yeah. We produced the first singles that we did, but they were never released at Decca. And then, obviously, we then, Mike Smith was our record producer and arranger at Decca Records then for the next sort of 7 or 8 years, right the way through the 60s.
Sure.
So Mickey Mouse sort of went his own way, and I stayed with Mike Smith at Decca.
It was great that you should mention Doncaster, actually, because as you know, this show's syndicated, and believe it or not, Doncaster now has two independent stations of its own, and this show goes out on both of them. So it's not that you should mention. That's great, isn't it? Nice little tie up there.
Fantastic, because it was a very, very important part of our fan base. Doncaster, you know, we played at a load of venues there. And I think people do forget that. I think that's what's missing a lot in music at the moment. I'm not one of these old timers who knocks new music and everything, but I think we're losing the grassroots of. I think it was Noel Gallagher who said, you know, what's happened to all the working class bands? You know, where you sort of built up your following, and we had a tremendous following around in different areas, and it was very, very important to us when we were signed with Decca that we had this fan base in different areas of the country.
That's cool. Now, I want to get you to like October 63, so you've basically done with Mickey Most and that. Now, how long was it before he turned out your first single, which looks like Memphis, Tennessee, and on the B-side, Tossing and Turning, which I assume is the song that was done by the Ivy League a bit later?
No, it wasn't by the Ivy League. It was a guy, I've forgotten his name now, but...
well, was it the same song, though, Dave? Was it the same song?
No, it was a rhythm and blues song.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Song that we picked up from... unfortunately, I've forgotten the guy's name now. He was one of these guys we were just listening to at the time. From signing with Decca, it did take a long time to find suitable. We couldn't really find suitable material, and there was a very interesting story about how we came to record Memphis, Tennessee, because we'd been doing Saturday Club for the BBC, and the producer of Saturday Club contacted my agent in Manchester and said that we've had a lot of response from Dave Berry performing Memphis, Tennessee on Saturday Club for the BBC. So that's the reason that we recorded Memphis, because it was the live performance of it. It got a very, very good reaction.
Brilliant.
So again, it was down to the people who were listening to us all at the time.
Sure. Now, Dave, was it you that chose the name Barry as a stage name, or was Mickey Most or some promoter behind it? Was it your choice?
No, it was, again, when we started out, sort of 59, 60, I was a huge Chuck Berry fan.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, I wrote it, you know, I mean, I still think he wrote the finest songs. Tom Jones said that you listen to a Chuck Berry song and he never repeats a line.
Okay.
You know, it's all it's a story right the way through the songs. And it sounds unusual now, but literally Chuck Berry was not really known here.
Okay, yeah.
It was not really known, so it was just that I was seeing a lot of Chuck Berry songs, and we decided not to call me Dave Berry.
Okay.
It sounds a bit bizarre now.
Well, I don't know. It
also
also makes sense.
Sorry about this, Nick. I've just got a dry throat. 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, okay. Well, that was a story about Chuck Berry.
It makes sense as well, though, Dave. It really does. It's always a great little story to find out how someone chose their name. That's great, mate. Let's get on with. So that's we talked about the first single, but I did okay. Scraped to the top 20 for you, but you did started really bashing those songs out almost back to back, each one being a hit. So tell us about 1964 and Top of the Pops and everything that happened. Ready, Steady, Go, and all that. Because that must be the year all that kicks in, I would think.
Yes, it was wonderful. I mean, I did have a whole. I was recording sort of probably 3 or 4 singles each year, but I don't think really looking back at my career, that Decca really knew where to place me. You know, I was neither a pop singer or my voice is not rough enough to be a sort of rhythm and blues singer really. So I was more enthusiastic than being able to come up with the goods. I mean, I wasn't Eric Burden or people like that, and so I don't think Decca really knew what to do with me, and so that's why I was recording such a diverse, you know, different songs, you know, country songs, rhythm and blues songs, ballads, and but because of my visual show, I was always booked. Johnny Happ was very good with me on Granada TV. He always booked me from Manchester, and then there was Vicky Wickham, who was Dusty Springfield's manager. She was attracted to the fact that I was visual, so I was on Ready, Steady, Go for every single that I had released. Brilliant. Irrespective of whether they were sort of made the charts. So it was my visual performance that really has and still does has helped me right the way through my career. Sure. And so those programs were fantastic. I mean, to be involved in those lovely stories, you know, like doing the run through was Ready, Steady, Go in Kingsway in London for Ready, Steady, Go, and then after we finished, we'd be down Carnaby Street, you know, in a taxi with the Who. Brilliant. To choose clothes from Carnaby Street to wear live on the TV, you know, in London at sort of 6 o'clock in the evening or whatever it was. So it was all very real, and of course all these guys that I worked with in the 60s, we've still kept, you know, in contact. You know, Bill Wyman, Roger Daltrey. These are guys that I was working with at the start of their careers and my career. So it's been exciting. Sure, and therefore you would have got to meet the absolutely gorgeous Kathy McGowan, who's still a mega babe now, really. So I'm jealous of you for that one, Dave. Yeah, we were all part of a party of people, and again regulars. That was the nice thing, is that you know, you'd be on sort of Ready, Steady, Go with the current new bands that were coming through, but you'd also be on there with Stones and Hollies and people. Brilliant. So yeah, it was really, really nice. Okay, so also no, it's not the last single of '64. In fact, within the second last, so July '64. So The Crying Game. Now, did you choose that one, or was it selected for you? It's a great choice. Well, it was brought to me, like most of my stuff was from Mike Smith. Okay. Sue's got a question for you, actually, concerning that.
Dave, would you say that The Crying Game changed your life? And I've noticed
we
that...
We really just chose these songs that Mike Smith was sending me. But I wasn't really, when I first heard it, I didn't really want to be singing ballads. You know,
Sure.
my first 4 singles had been Memphis, I think Baby It's You, My Baby Left Me, the old sort of Elvis Big Boy Phillips song. They were great songs.
Yeah.
They were sort of got in the lower half of the charts. So I preferred it to be staying with the R&B based songs.
Yeah.
But then it was Jimmy Page and Big Jim Sullivan who was my session
Wow.
musicians.
Brilliant.
And they were the ones really who opened my eyes really to music. I mean, they were doing my sessions, then they'd be, you know, going across London to do the next session with like Rolf Harris or Herman's Hermits. You know, they were very open to music.
Sure.
So they were the ones who said, well, really, if you remember that in music, if it's a good song, it doesn't matter whether it's a country song, a blues song, a folk song, or a jazz song. You know, a good song is a good song.
Oh, sure.
A Crying Game is a good song.
Absolutely.
So really, they were really who talked to me round to opening my eyes on listening to different things. So that's the reason I recorded Crying Game.
I think where Sue was really going with it is that she noted earlier that your website is www.cryinggame.co.uk, and I think there's just the fact that you selected that as opposed to using Dave Berry. I think that's where she was going with, you know, did it actually change your life? You know, was it that big?
Well, it was, yes, and I think it's actually got my chart successes all got to number 5 in the chart.
Yes.
In the UK, so Crying Game was no bigger than any of my other chart songs. But I think with time, it's like many things. With time, it's been recorded by about more than 20 different artists since my version.
One of them, yeah. Well, Boy George did a great version because it's so different. But the ones that stand out is just you and Boy George, in my opinion. But yeah, that's my honest opinion.
I love it. If anybody wants to look on YouTube and see the Kylie Minogue live version from the NYMEX in Manchester, that is a fantastic version.
Okay, I haven't heard that. No.
So there's some great versions around, yes.
Brilliant. Well, then we had One Heart Between Two. Then we get another number 5, Little Things, another mega 60s classic there. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
That came about, again, through Mike Smith, just bringing me songs. It was a chart song in America by Bobby Goldsboro.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So mine was we sort of lifted pretty much his arrangement because at that time in the 60s, it was you'd often see in the chart in the early 60s 2 or 3 different versions of the same song, which sounds quite bizarre now, but so it was quite acceptable for English artists to record American songs and just really lift the same arrangement and put their own interpretation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're quite right. Very much so in the 50s. That was big time what you're talking about then. Now, you did you have to correct me if I'm wrong now. I was around in the 60s, but the reason why I don't remember it's because I was in nappies, not to do with other stuff. So I know that you covered a song by the late B.J. Thomas, who sadly passed away about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Which song of his was it you covered? Because I know that there's one, but...
We covered Mama.
Mama, brilliant. Okay.
Mama, that was. Oh, I didn't know he died. That's very sad.
3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah, terminal cancer, sadly.
Oh dear, no, I didn't realise that. Yeah, of all the songs I recorded, again, it was not a song that I particularly was liked too much, you know. But I think it's with time. You look back on your career and think, I could bring you 2,000 artists who would give their right arm just to have one record in the chart, never mind half a dozen. You know, so the fact that one of them was one that I didn't particularly like at the time, completely caused it insignificance. You know, I'm very proud of all the stuff I've done.
Yeah, so you should be. Some great classics there. Also, Dave, we've got a question from Gus McCormack of Dundee. He's a regular listener, and he asked me to tell you, also ask you, your 3 biggest hits in the UK all peaked at number 5. How did you feel of not going any higher, bearing in mind how massive classic hits they were in the 60s?
I never thought, and never thought anything of it. I just took it as part of
Sure.
the music business. Some of my other ones only got, I think Memphis, Tennessee only got to about number 18
Yeah.
in the chart.
Yeah.
I think at the time I was just thinking, because I'd got a visual act, I was on all the TV shows, radio shows, so I wasn't analysing my career. I don't think anybody did at that time. And I think but I know that most of us just thought if we had 2 or 3 or 4 good years out of the music business, then we were quite happy, because many of us were from working class backgrounds, so we never really had any career plans. If you went to uni or something where your career was sort of, I want to do this or take so to do that. We just thought, well, I suppose we thought if it doesn't work out, then we just go back to a regular job. That did change as the years went by. I suddenly realised, in my case, I thought, well, if I handle my career carefully, these chart songs that I was having in the 60s could be the basis of a long career. As long as I use the rest of my show and choose my material carefully, which I do even to this day, I'll be introducing new songs to my show. I don't only do, if you see a Dave Berry show, it's not a retro show with the, singing High Old Silver Lining and, really singing the blues. It's a mixture of classic songs.
Yeah, I think look upon that as a compliment, though.
Sorry, a quick cough there.
Of course.
Quick cough.
No, I think no criticism at all. Just look upon that as being a compliment, really, that you've got these really great songs which are classed as big classics of the 60s, which, there can't be anybody that's into music at all that has never heard, obviously, of 2 or 3 of those biggest hits of even people who weren't born there. So I think that's where we were going, really, with it.
And I think that another thing, going back to the live show, is that I've learned during the years, from very, very early days, and we've all been to shows where you're thinking, you go and see one of your favourite artists, and you're thinking, I don't want to hear 10 songs from his new album.
I see. Yes.
The famous word to make most fans of artists cringe is to hear them say, I'd like to perform a few songs from my new album. And, so what I've got a way of doing my show is that there's never more than about 4 songs in my show where there's not going to be something that people will associate with Dave Berry. Sure,
that's cool.
There'll be sort of 5, right away through my show, there'll be a song every sort of 3 or 4 songs that they know is there'll be Mama, there'll be Little Things, there'll be Baby Shoes, there'll be My Baby Left Me. And they're spaced very carefully through the show.
Sure.
Right up from the beginning to the end, there's a song that they know. And then in between all that, I do classic songs, and then songs by Nick Lowe or Dave Edmunds.
Okay, yeah.
Tom Petty, things like that. And so it's a very good balanced show. And I thought, in the very early days, as long as I take care of my career like that, then I've got a long career ahead of me, which has proved to be true.
Sure. Dave, I read somewhere, well, I did a little bit of research, obviously, although, of course, I knew who you were, because you went on, you got invited to one of the ones I wanted to invite on. Now, I read somewhere that, I can't see it anywhere, but you mentioned your stage show and your acts and how you've, you worked on it and that. Now, I read somewhere that you, in the 60s, covered part of your face up as part of the act, almost as though maybe you didn't want to be seen or you were shy or something, but was that just part of the act? Because I've just put in, I've got loads of pictures of you, but not you covering your face up. So was that just a rumour or did it really happen?
Well, it was all... I wanted to be very visual, and I'd always been interested in mime artists.
Okay.
French singers, and I'd always been a fan of Laurel and Hardy, Stan Laurel, and he used to sort of like tweak his hat a little bit, or and you'd sort of and I'd worked a lot with strippers in Hamburg.
Okay.
And they were like they would tease the audience by like lifting a blouse or whatever you'd call it, top, and just hiding, and it's like a peekaboo with the audience, teasing.
Okay.
And so and then working in very small rock venues, there would be things like, there was a famous club in Sheffield called at the time the Esquire Club, which is now the very famous Lead Mill, which is still operating, but all the current bands play there. And that had a central pillow support right in the middle of the stage, which is ridiculous, really. But it was a support for the balcony. So I used to think, well, if that's going to be there, use it. So what I used to do is that during the guitar solo, I'd go and hide behind the central pillar support and just peep out at the audience with one eye looking at the audience.
Absolutely
They're
brilliant.
meant to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, really. It wasn't meant to be taken so seriously. But when television picked up on it, it did look quite... I mean, many people tell me now that my TV appearances used to not scare people, but they didn't like it because it was a bit weird.
Well, Dave,
I would sort
it's obviously worked, though, Dave, because we're talking about it... Carry on.
And there's very important things with the stage performances that most people go to shows and you tend to remember the opening of a show and the end of the show. So I would, again, think carefully, right, well, if I come round the curtain without showing my face and I just put my hand out of the curtain, they just see the white hand and the spotlight. In theatres it works brilliantly, so they just see the white hand with maybe a glove on it. A white glove. Very weird. And then I would come out halfway through the song, only 2-3 minutes into the introduction. And then I would do my show, and then right at the very end of the show, I would actually maybe take a black glove from my pocket, put the glove on, and then I would disappear. And the last thing that the audience would see would just be my hand disappearing behind the curtain. So the first images of me would be the hand at the beginning of the show, and then right at the end would be the hand again. So you've established a very positive image. And that's the way I've worked all my career, to try and do things a little bit unusual.
Brilliant. Well, obviously it worked quite well, Dave, because we're talking about it like 56, 57, 58 years on. So it obviously worked, didn't it, really?
Well, it did, yes. But I think visual performances always work and stay in people's memories. From my era, you've got Mick Jagger, who's doing pretty much the same act that he was doing 56 years ago as well. Clapping his hands in front of his face and dancing around. Many people remember in the 80s Phil Oakes on the Human League when he did a famous Top of the Pops show when he got very long hair and he had half cut off.
Oh, I remember him like that.
You remember that?
I do.
You remember that? That must be 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And so half his hair is long, hanging down to his shoulder, and the other half is cropped.
Yeah, I remember
and that image stays there.
Yes.
And so image is really, really, really the most important thing. With Prince, with his, routines, with his sort of look, people like that. So image. I think in rock music, image is the most important thing.
Okay, before we move in to bring you up to the present day, I just talk about the image and that, which clearly has worked well for you. I've got a little bit here from. It's called The Original, and it's from October 2009. I think some sort of magazine, and it basically made comment that. He, referring to Dave Berry, that basically said, you often hid behind an upturned collar of your leather jacket or wrapped yourself around and effectively behind the microphone lead. So, so somebody's writing about it also in more recent times as well, Dave. So, well done, mate. Yeah, great to talk about it. Dave, you obviously went on the stage when these singles continued on the stage when the singles started drying up, late 60s and into 70. Was it just like tours you were doing, or would you be booked by like a municipal theatre and do that and then do it when the next one comes up? Or how did it work out for you from like the 1970 onwards?
Well, that was the era when the late 60s, I mean, generally in music, the average artist, even today, will have 3, 4, 5 years of chart success, unless you go above all that and become like Joe Cocker was, or Rod Stewart, or Brian Ferry. There's certain artists rise above, the hit records. But in my case, like many of my the colleagues from the 60s, the hits dried up. But fortunately, in the late 60s and early 70s, there was all over the country, from Brighton up to Dundee and every city in between, had these big theatre clubs, cabaret theatre clubs. And you would play on those for a week, 6 nights. We'd be in Birmingham for 6 nights, and we'd go down to Brighton for 6 nights, and across to Cardiff for 6 nights.
Wow.
And for me, I loved those clubs. I mean, because you got to know all the staff, the management, the crew were working there. You had a different audience each night.
Sure.
I could do my show because it was there were first class lighting and sound. In the very early days, they had really good systems in there. Many of my other 60s artists didn't like them. They were cabaret clubs.
You're right. Okay.
But for me, I enjoyed it. There's not been an aspect of my career that I've not enjoyed.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Because I like to think of myself as a true musician and artist. And as I say to sometimes, I can be, as I have done, be at the London Palladium one night, and then a small sort of R&B club, blues club, in the provinces somewhere for sort of 250 people.
Oh, wow.
And that's all part of being a musician.
Sure. And also in this day and age, Dave, of course, in the singles chart, where there's these downloads for 99 pence and everything else, and the amount of copies sold, there's really not much money on even getting to number one these days. It has to be through the live performances, which, of course, you're doing, and that's where the money is these days. And I hear it time and again.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. And also it's, again, I can only just refer to the fact that I feel that I'm, again, going back to what the established artists who I respect, and most people do, like Keith Richards, will say that he feels, and that the Stones feel like the old blues singers of old. They tour the world, and we're real musicians, and we just play. In their case, they're obviously doing major, world tours. But generally, the life of a musician is to be touring and playing in venues, and that's where we make our living. Yes,
absolutely.
I mean, I've got always had a good band with me, so there's one thing that I have stuck with all the years is that, if you go to see a Dave Berry show, you see Dave Berry with live musicians.
There's
no backing tapes and
perfect
sounds coming from the mixing desk, but there's nobody there's nobody on stage playing those instruments. So mine is a live show, and I work with the young guys as well in the band.
Brilliant. And I understand that they are still called the acts altogether as Dave Berry and the Cruisers to this day. I understand.
Right. Yes.
Brilliant.
It's changed many times during the years, many times. But I enjoy that as well, because it gives me the opportunity to bring in new players, young players.
That's good.
And then it gives another aspect of the show.
Of course, Dave. Yeah. Sue's got another question for you.
Dave, what is your favourite song that you have sung?
Yeah, good one.
My favourite song?
That you've done yourself, yeah.
Yes, I think still one of my favourites was The Strange Effect, that was written for me by Ray Davies.
Oh, okay. Nice.
The Kings never recorded it, but Ray wrote it with me in mind. Because Ray will say that we have a similar sort of vocal style, where we slide up to notes. We never really hit the notes bang on.
Okay.
We slide up to them, and so that was that was not really. It in the lower part of the charts here, but it was a big hit for me in particularly Holland and Belgium.
Okay. What was that one called, Dave? Sorry, I didn't catch it when you said.
The Strange Effect.
The Strange Effects. No. Oh, yes, number 30. I got you. Yeah, I got you. No problems. So he's got another question for you, Dave, actually.
Dave, is there any plans for you to do an autobiography?
Yes, well, I have a book out at the moment. Yes, came out about...
Plug it, please, Dave.
Ago, yes. So there is a book, and I will actually make sure when we finish the interview that if you leave the contact, I'll get one sent off from the publisher.
Perfect, Dave. That'd be absolutely brilliant, and thank you. And what about tours?
You can cut this bit.
I edit it. Don't you worry. What I'll do, Dave.
I'll just send you a copy down. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. That's great. And then, that's perfect. I'll give all the details and so on at the end. And also, Dave, have you got a tour coming up or any gigs or, say, bookings that have been cancelled due to lockdown? Have you got a load back in yet?
Oh, yes, very much so. We had a major tour cancelled last year because of the lockdown. And that's taking place in October, November this year. That's going down as, it's about 44 nights.
Okay.
As far as Inverness and as far down as sort of Plymouth and everywhere in between.
Okay.
And that's not just on my own. That's with PJ Proby.
Oh wow.
Steve Ellis.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Swinging Blue Jeans, Herman's Hermits, Marmalade. It's a huge tour. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to forward me the dates, or do I go to Barry for them?
If you went on my website, all my dates, all that tour are on my website now.
Perfect. And guess what? Carry on, Dave. Sorry.
No, that's it. Yes, all my dates, and then in between, I'm doing one-nighters. Yes, I mean,
brilliant.
This Saturday, I've just been for about 1,000 people at the Newbury Showground in.
Nice.
So that was very successful. So yes, I'm very active and touring the country. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that brings us to the part of the show where I ask you, Dave, do you have a Facebook group, official Facebook group and things like that? Are you on social media yourself?
No, I've avoided that like the plague, very intentionally. I always say that if you need to know anything about my career, sorry, I've got some work being done in the house, can you hear that?
I can hear you, don't you worry.
Hang on, I've just got...
Just 1 or 2 minutes and we can wrap it up anyway, please, yeah. I thought it was a massive wasp.
That is good though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
told him to stop. Yeah.
Only for a minute
Sorry
or two.
about that.
No, that's good. I thought you had one of those African wasps in.
No, so back to the.
Yeah.
The fate. No. I've avoided it quite intentionally.
Okay. Well, that. Yeah.
If they want to know anything about, you can just read it on the website.
Yeah. And we always close with the website, and do please take a look at Dave Berry's website, and it is quite wonderfully www.cryinggame.co.uk. Once again, Dave Berry's website, www.cryinggame.co.uk, and it is all on there. Dave, do you want to say anything else? It's been a pleasure, but did you want to add anything before I close?
No, I've enjoyed it very much. It's been nice to talk about different aspects of my career.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that people are interested, so that it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, we're close properly. So Dave Berry, it's been a pleasure having you on Chatterbox UK. Absolute pleasure to talk to you at last, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good luck to everyone.
And you,
Bye-bye.
and take care, Dave. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. 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 Bye. Thanks, Dave. Cheers for that.
Okay, tell you what to do. You've got my mobile number.
Yes,
Will
I
you
have.
just send an address through?
Yes, of course. Yes. I would do that now, Dave. Thank you.
Just text it through, and then I'll get the book sent down to you. Just let me know you received it safely when you can text me or ring me, whatever.
Of course, Dave. Not a problem. And
Let me know, and I'll get in touch with the publisher.
and you've had an amazing career, and I know the listeners are going to love it. All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye. 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 I'm almost tempted to leave part of that in. When I say I thought you had an African wasp in.